So, when a company decides to sell off a piece of its business, it's a massive undertaking. But you know what the hardest part is? The surgery you have to perform on its central nervous system, the IT infrastructure. Okay, let's dive into the playbook for making that separation a clean one.
Just think about it for a second. All those applications, all that data, those systems, they've been woven together for years, maybe even decades. It's like a giant, messy ball of yarn, and if you pull on the wrong thread, you could unravel the whole thing, putting both the old and the new company at huge risk. This, right here, is the single biggest headache in any divestiture.
But here's the good news. You don't have to just guess your way through it. There's a structured framework, a proven method to bring some serious order to all of this chaos. And that is exactly what we are going to break down right now.
So what is it that makes this process so incredibly difficult? I mean, it's not just about moving a few servers or changing a logo. The complexity goes way, way deeper than that, and it touches literally every single part of the business. What's so interesting here is how all these challenges are connected. See, you've got these applications that are so deeply integrated, it's almost impossible to pull them apart without breaking something. And that, of course, creates huge risks for keeping the business running. At the same time, the executives up top need a simple, high-level view of how things are going, but the teams on the ground are totally buried in details with no central way to track anything. It's the classic problem of not being able to see the forest for the trees.
So how in the world do you fix that? How do you give executives that clean, simple dashboard they need, while still letting the project managers get down into the nitty-gritty details? Well, the answer is a really powerful unifying idea.
And this, right here, this is the secret sauce, standardized tracking. It basically means you force every single project plan, and remember, there could be hundreds of them, to use the exact same high-level structure. You're creating a common language, and when everyone's speaking the same language, you can suddenly roll up all that messy, complicated data into something that's clean, consistent, and actually makes sense.
And this slide just shows it perfectly. Over on the right, that's the project manager's world, right? All the little tasks, the deadlines, the dependencies for one application. But on the left, that's what the executive sees, a simple, at-a-glance health report. The magic is that the data on the left is being automatically fed by all those super detailed plans on the right. And that brings us to the most crucial point of all. You have to build one single source of truth, a reliable data pipeline. When every report, every dashboard, every meeting is pulling from the exact same real-time project data, there's no more arguing, there's no confusion. The data tells the true story of how things are going, instantly.
Okay, so with that solid foundation of standardized tracking in place, now we can walk through the actual journey of an IT separation. And this journey follows a really clear 5-phase roadmap that'll take you all the way from the initial idea to the final cutover.
So here's the whole life cycle, right there in one view. It's a pretty logical progression, right? But here's the crazy part. In a divestiture, you are running this exact cycle for hundreds of applications, all at the same time. And that is why that standardized tracking we just talked about is so absolutely critical to keeping this whole orchestra in sync. It all starts here, in the planning phase. This is where you draw the map for the entire journey. And you know, the biggest mistake people make is underscoping the project, missing some critical piece that comes back to bite them later. A really solid plan here is what prevents those expensive, painful surprises down the road.
All right, next up, the real hands-on work begins. In design and development, the teams are actually building out the new reality. This could be something as simple as changing logos and branding, or it could be as complex as cloning massive databases and building entirely new systems. The key thing to remember is this is where most of the actual work happens, so being efficient is everything.
Now, before you flip the switch, you have got to be sure everything works. Testing is completely non-negotiable. First, you have system integration testing, or SIT. That's just making sure all the different systems can talk to each other properly. Then comes user acceptance testing, or UAT, where real people, the end users, confirm they can actually do their jobs in the new environment. Rushing this step is a huge mistake. It's your last line of defense against a total disaster on day one.
And that brings us to the moment of truth, the final cutover. This is that high-stakes weekend where everything changes. The point of no return when the new company's IT finally stands on its own 2 feet.
This quote just nails the pressure of the moment. The whole thing is this tightly choreographed dance. If one single application gets delayed, it can set off a catastrophic domino effect, pushing back everything that depends on it and putting the entire go-live weekend in jeopardy. So, to stop those dominoes from ever falling, you need a central nervous system for the deployment itself, and that's the command center. Think of it as mission control for the cutover, giving everyone minute-by-minute, real-time visibility into every single thing that's happening.
The people in the command center are obsessed with data. I mean, they're tracking the exact start and end times for every task, they're logging any issues the second they pop up, and figuring out the blast radius. And they're keeping an extra close eye on the critical path assets, the ones that everything else is waiting on, to make sure the whole operation stays on schedule.
Okay, so this playbook sounds great in theory, right? But does it actually hold up under extreme, real-world pressure? Well, let's take a look at a case study of a massive, multinational IT company that put this whole framework to the ultimate test. The scenario was a complete nightmare, honestly. You had this huge parent company trying to spin off a subsidiary, but their IT systems were totally tangled up with each other. The scale of the challenge here was just staggering. First, just try to wrap your head around the complexity. They were managing over 400 separate but interconnected IT projects, all running in parallel. Every single one was a potential point of failure.
And on top of that, those projects involved separating nearly 700 different business applications. I mean, think about that. 700 different systems, each with its own quirks, its own complexities, and its own hidden dependencies. And the final piece of this giant pressure cooker? They had to do it all on a ridiculously aggressive timeline. Just 10 months. 10 months from the big announcement to day one of the new company. There was absolutely no room for error.
So, what was the result? It worked. It actually worked. By using the exact framework we've been talking about, standardized plans, that single source of truth, and real-time reporting, they navigated that incredible complexity. Every single IT project finished on time. It was a successful separation, against all odds.
So, when you really boil it all down, the big takeaway here is that these ideas, data discipline, standardized tracking, real-time visibility, they're not just for huge corporate divestitures. This is a universal blueprint for managing complexity, for taming chaos. And it kind of makes you wonder, what chaotic, high-stakes project in your world could be mastered with this exact same playbook?